Welcome to Works. Today's video is a continuation of our trip through Martha's Vineyard aboard a bus tour with Oak Bluffs Land and Wharf Company. Please enjoy part 2.
For you Jaws fans, the shark fighting scenes were filmed in the distance out here. So Menemsha in the movie Jaws is the home port for Quint. So you have Quint, there's both the Orca and Quint's fishing shack. That's all Menemsha stuff. And they don't talk about it specifically in the movie, but this is where all that was. There's a famous scene where Quint loads up the Orca with Richard Dreyfuss and the sheriff, and they motor right out this harbor. It's an aerial shot. That all happened right there. Quint's fishing shack was back over here. Oh, by the way, the buildings right along the waterline we call fishing shacks. And we'll get a closer look at them here in a second. But the Quint's fishing shack they tore down right after the filming because it was temporary. But beautiful view right there. I don't know how many days like this we're going to continue to have. This is really spectacular. This is our smallest sushi restaurant in Martha's Vineyard right here. Fresh sashimi. You see the tail on the wall? That's a trophy. In some places they put antlers on the wall. This is a fishing village, so in certain walls there's huge swordfish tails. That's a very small tail. These are all lobster traps around it. Lobster traps are kind of funny. Well, to me, I think they're funny. They have 2 rooms. The lobster crawls into the parlor first, and then it gets caught in the kitchen and it can't leave. I think that's hilarious. Larson's Fish Market. Been there for 52 years. If you want to do this, my advice is to just call ahead and double check on their hours. Make sure they're open. Because if you want to experience the food and the sunset together, that's a good rule of thumb anywhere on this island this time of year. It's just call ahead and see if they're open and see what the hours are. Because a lot of places don't have enough employees left, so they close down. But here's a nice view. These are the old fishing shacks. Most of these have been torn down in New England. But remember, this whole village was rebuilt in 39 and 40 after the hurricane. Everything had to be rebuilt. Beautiful New England scene right there. So as we leave the harbor, there's a house here hidden behind the tree. It's got a big flag. And Carly Simon owned this house for years and years. And people knew she lived there. Her fans knew she lived there, and they'd walk up the hill and knock on her door. They thought that was a great way to meet Carly Simon. She disagreed, of course. She thought it was creepy. So she still lives here, just in a more private place. But Carly released an album in '81 called Live from Martha's Vineyard. That's kind of her greatest hits collection. And if you ever go down the YouTube rabbit hole and look up the music videos for Live from Martha's Vineyard, you'll see that it's an outdoor concert scene filmed in Menemsha. And you'll see all these old buildings. You see the Coast Guard dormitory in front of us and her house. And it's cool. Now that you know what you're looking at, it's really kind of fun to watch. The music's timeless. Carly Simon's father started Simon & Schuster Publishing Company. So she comes from an establishment group. Grew up summering here because of that. She's been a full-time island person for most of her adult life. She was famously married to James Taylor. Stormy marriage, 10 years, 2 kids. Carly raised Ben and Sally, the kids here on the island. So that's how people relate to her. Obviously a rock star of her era, but she's also a mom in the community. She had a birthday on June 25th. She's 76 now. And rarely performs in public. Published authors, published several books, working on more. I'm not personal friends with Carly, but I see her around the island. And she's active socially. A lot of sparkle. James Taylor has a property we're going to talk about in a little bit. And he hasn't slowed down. He's still touring and filling venues. Some of you have probably seen them in concert over the years. We're going to scoot through Chilmark again. And if any of you are science fiction fans, you might get a kick out of this. If you remember the old TV show The X-Files, Fox Mulder is a Martha's Vineyard guy. Now, in the show, there's several episodes that have to do with Fox's dad, and it ends up that his dad's funeral is in West Tisbury, Massachusetts, where we were. And the storyline that keeps the whole show together is Fox spends his life looking for his sister. When they were kids, they went over to their neighbor's house in Chilmark, and she got abducted by aliens. So the foundation of the story is all Martha's Vineyard stuff. And Chris Carter came here as a young man, the guy who wrote all that. And he works Martha's Vineyard into his stories from time to time, or things that he writes. And it's always interesting who comes through my van. A couple of weeks ago, I had one of Chris Carter's childhood friends. They're still buddies. And he told me a little bit about it, gave me a little insight. This is kind of cool. Over here to the left, this is an honor system farm stand. The rain has washed the chalk off the board, but they have flowers out. See the gray box on the table? See how clear and clean the water is? You see right through it. So Menemsha, we'll have lots of glimpses of this as we go along on your right. Menemsha means still water in Wampanoag. Shallow pond. Depending on the season, you'll see people out here raking up oysters and clams for dinner. Just pull a little permit to do that. This is going to open up here. And from here, you'll be able to look all the way back to the right. If you look all the way back, that's where James Taylor's property is. And he moved here from Chapel Hill as a young man. And he was a struggling artist. But eventually, this is all tribal land that we're going to up here with the cliffs and the lighthouse. We're not going to go directly to the lighthouse. What we're going to do is go to the cliffs. And we'll see the cliffs and the lighthouse together. And that's the most photographed angle on the island. What's really nice about it is it's the only angle you can get the flash of the lighthouse in your picture. So try to do that. Remember, there's a red light and a white light, and they're 8 seconds apart. Just count it out, but it's easier said than done. But when you get that light, man, it makes your picture pop. Nice view of the lighthouse there. This might be the most important thing I say to some of you today. The restroom is at the bottom of the hill on the left. That's important news from time to time. There's porta potties there, but the building is open still this time of year. And it's spick and span. Whimsical yard art. You'll see examples of those around the island now that you've seen that. Cool stuff. And over here on the left is Alley's General Store. It opened its doors for the first time in 1858. And it's still a general store. You can get your mail and buy a bikini and a hammer. All the essentials in there. I mentioned earlier that we're not very good at naming roads. We call this road the West Tisbury to Edgartown Road. And we're headed down island now, which is east for us. Those cliffs were completely up in the west. Now, a little bit ago, we were chatting about Jackie O's Redgate Farm and how the Conservation Trust purchased a big chunk of that. This island has made a big commitment to remaining rural. And part of our strategy for keeping developers at arm's length is through the Conservation Trust system. There'll never be a big condo tower here. You've probably noticed how much wide open space we have. 42% of Martha's Vineyard is held in Conservation Trust. So you can't build on trust land. You can't cut down a tree on trust land. It's one reason we have such a healthy forest. But the trust land's not blocked off. It's not how it works. It's open. There's paths and roads, and you can jog and picnic and go to the beach on the trust land. It's a park, basically. And 2% of every real estate transaction on Martha's Vineyard goes to the trust. It's a non-negotiable fee. So they're very well funded. You know they're well funded because they just dropped $37 million over there on the Redgate farm. So they acquire properties from time to time, and they really maintain the stuff that they get. So it's a wonderful thing. And if you like architecture, this is a beautiful church here to our left. Great big clock tower. The Old Whaling Church. This is a wooden church from 1843. Originally Methodist back then. But now it's controlled by the trust, so they have weddings and cultural events. No services. Beautiful old place. Old Whaling Church. Courthouse here to our left. There's a very famous picture of Teddy Kennedy standing on the courthouse steps. He had just had a little incident with Mary Jo Keating on Chapaquatic, which we're getting ready to talk about here very shortly. Right there. For you Jaws fans, when we first meet Clint, he's scratching his fingernails on the chalkboard in the town hall. That was filmed right here in the town hall in the back room. And I love this staircase. Beautiful building. 4th of July parade scene in Jaws was filmed right here on Main Street. The real 4th of July parade. And everybody in this scene's an island extra. And in the town hall scene, those are all island people in there. You guys all have homework. You got to watch Jaws again soon. You'll enjoy it more than ever. You'll see so much familiar stuff now. So, I'm going to give you a little Cliff Notes version of the Chapaquatic incident. And it could go on for hours, so I'm just going to hit some highlights. You guys know the story anyway. There's a little confusion as to what Chapaquatic is. Chapaquatic is simply a neighborhood of Edgartown. It sometimes is an island, sometimes it isn't. It kind of depends on the sand and the sea. So if anybody's talking to you about Chapaquatic, whether they know it or not, they're talking about Edgartown. Now, in 1969, Teddy Kennedy came here for the regatta, the yacht race. He was a senator. He was thinking about running for president. But this event wasn't just about sailing for him. These were power brokers and fundraising and a bunch of parties. Mary Jo Keating was here. She was 28 years old, from New Jersey. Known in the Democratic Party. These folks knew her. After a party one night, they got in Teddy's car, and Teddy was a big drunk driver his whole life. And as you well know, they crossed a bridge, and Teddy lost control of the car, and it flipped off and submerged into the pond, completely submerged. Teddy got out. I don't know if it was drunkenness or cowardice or what it was, but he didn't go back to save her. And she died in the bottom of a pond. And he got away with it because his name was Kennedy. 2 days later, he admitted it was his car, he was driving, he was drunk, he crashed the car and he left the scene, he left her in a pond. And after admitting all this, the worst thing that happened to him is he lost his driver's license for 2 weeks. It's just a terrible, terrible story. He was staying over here to the left. This hotel says Edgartown Inn now, but back then it was the Shiretown Inn. And I'm going to put this Chapaquatic stuff on hold for a moment. We'll pick it back up again in a different way, because we're going to drive through these beautiful whaling captain mansions. This is only one street of Whaling Captain mansions. There's others to explore. There's 90 of them still standing in tremendous shape. 1700s, 1800s construction, a lot of them are still standing. Owned by prominent American families now. To give you a sense of the property values here, this is a $14 million property. And these homes are only occupied 4 to 6 weeks a year. They sit empty most of the year. Nobody Airbnbs on the street. You'll notice as we go along that landscaping is kind of a competitive sport. I have a friend who has a landscaping company on the island. He has a couple accounts here in Edgartown that are $70,000 a year for the landscaping, and they're never there. But they pay the bill. If they show up, it's perfect, of course. But over here on the left, not this left, but the next building on the left, there's a walkway on top of the home. And some people call that a widow's walk, but it's more accurately called a widow's watch. Because the captain's wives would stand there at night and watch this harbor to see if the husband's ship had finally come in. It's only associated with the ocean as far as I know. But these days, it's just used for drinking. So a little different tone up there now. These two homes to our left were built in the Revolution. And in those days, during the war, if you built a home, you built a symbol in it that reflected your politics. Your loyalty in the war, actually. So look at the chimneys are different on these homes. That white chimney was a Tory. He fought for the King of England. And this red chimney, his neighbor, by the way, was a revolutionary. And we still do stuff like that, don't we? We have our bumper stickers and our yard signs. Kind of very similar thing. When the revolution began, the island was quite divided. But after the war, or after Grey, the island was happy to join the new country and get rid of the old British colonial power. A lot of these homes on the left are later construction, but they kept that chimney tradition in one way or another. Past this last house to the right, we're going to see our final lighthouse of the day. More importantly, maybe, behind it we'll all see Chapaquatic. You're going to get a beautiful view of Chapaquatic right here. When I told you this story, I mentioned a bridge. It's not a bridge to Chapaquatic, it's a bridge on Chapaquatic. Still there, it's on the other side. We can't see it from here, but it's called the Dyke Bridge. It's there. That's all Chapaquatic. Beautiful view. Now on that bridge, it's conspicuous in its absence. There is no mention of Mary Jo Keating on that bridge. She passed away. If any of you are dates people or numbers people, you might find this interesting. The Chapaquatic incident over here happened around midnight between July 18th and 19th, 1969. JFK Jr. crashed his airplane off Martha's Vineyard on July 16th, 1999, which is eerily close to 30 years to the day. As the news of Chapaquatic was starting to get out on July 19th, something big happened the next day in the world that took all the headlines and the newspapers away. Anybody know what happened on July 20th, 69? Perfect. We landed on the moon. So here's an interesting wrinkle in history for you. The moon landing was JFK's initiative. And when it came to fruition, it covered up the death of Mary Jo Keating on that day. I don't say that in a conspiracy sense. That's just an incredible timing on that. It only covered up the story temporarily. The journalist didn't let the story go, and the story's part of the record. There's no justice in the story at all. But we got the story. You know, how many stories like that do we not know? So it's important we have it. These homes here are not whaling captains' homes. We'll see a couple more in a second, but couple of these, like I'll show you this place on the left up here, it looks like we're driving through a movie set. Several of them over here look like we're driving through a movie set. So this place to the left here is just spectacular. This whole area is only occupied 4 to 6 weeks a year as well. Isn't that pretty? So 58% of the housing on Martha's Vineyard is like this. It's only occupied seasonally. And we have a housing crisis here. I don't say crisis lightly. The businesses are feeling the brunt of it. They don't have enough employees, and it's not because people don't want to work, it's because people can't move to the island and find a place to live to take the job. And it's also not because the places are too expensive. They can't find them. So this is how we say the housing crisis works. It's kind of oversimplified, but it illustrates it. We say that nobody has a place to live, but all the housing is empty. And it's a paradox. It's a little ugly, but we have to figure it out at some point. It's worse every year. Same like Jackson Hole and the Hamptons and all these resort places have the same situation.
Thanks for watching Graber Works, and please like, subscribe, and comment.